Hey friends, welcome to Bokeh, a podcast exploring the ever-blurring lines between the personal and business lives of professional photographers. This is your host, Nathan Holritz, and I'm bringing you a special episode of the Bokeh Podcast today called Workflow Wednesday. During these special edition episodes, myself and my co-hosts will focus on helping you develop more efficient daily and weekly workflows around post-production, communication, task and project management, time management, file and image management, and yes, the list does go on. We're going to save you an incredible amount of time in your work week, and we promise not to be too nerdy. This podcast is brought to you by Photographers Edit, custom image editing for the wedding and portrait photographer. Visit photographersedit.com. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Workflow Wednesday with Photographers Edit. I'm here with my friends Haylee and Heather and Rich. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
I love the hat, by the way. Just love the hat.
Yeah, I know. We were talking about this before we started the live session. I'm breaking my brand a little bit. There's no spiky hair. I have a hat on. So for those of you listening on the podcast, you're not actually seeing this, but it's actually a motorcycling hat. So the first motorcycle that I ever bought, I guess is a bonus, because I spent thousands of dollars buying a motorcycle. They gave me a hat for free.
Worth it.
It is actually the most comfortable and easy to wear hat that I mean, of all two hats that I own, really. But yeah, so every once in a while I have to go to.
Nice. I'm picturing you negotiating the price. Be like, I'll buy this motorcycle if you throw
only if you give me a hat. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for listening in, for joining in. This is Workflow Wednesday, and of course, it's a production of Photographers Edit. We offer custom editing for wedding and portrait photographers, but really what we're doing is offering photographers time. We give them time back, and to that very point, we want to discuss, of course, we can't get on here and talk about editing every week. So what we do want to do is have conversation around workflow tips, and more specifically, how to save time in our workflow. Editing is part of our day-to-day workflow as professional photographers. And so it makes sense that we also delve into the other aspects or elements of our day-to-day workflow and figure out how we can streamline those elements, make them as efficient as possible so that we have as much time, as much freedom and flexibility as possible as photography business owners. And so to that point, we have these Workflow Wednesday episodes every Wednesday, both live here on the Photographers Edit Facebook page, and then also this gets pushed out to the Bokeh Podcast a little bit later in the day. So for those of you listening in on the Bokeh Podcast, make sure you come join us from time to time on Facebook Live. We already have a few people chiming in. Sarah says this is great, guys. First time. Thanks for joining us, Sarah.
Oh my goodness!
And,
I love she's using hashtags. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get a trending hashtag, and then Lauren. That's a really cool name, actually. Thank you for joining us as well. Waving back at you.
Oh, baby.
And so we're gonna actually dive into a workflow topic, a little bit different type of workflow topic today, because pretty much again everything that we do as photographers is workflow. And we're going to be talking more specifically about workflow when it comes to doing a photo shoot for couples. We have the illustrious Rich Smith from Rich Smith Photography that is going to share with us today. And so I'm going to actually, Rich, I'm popping your website up here on the screen. So for those watching live, they can see it, richsmithphotography.com or .net, whatever your preference. Check out Rich's work. And I'll also mention, since we have this pulled up, Haylee of HayleeGaffin.com is with us as well. Haylee is a photographer as well as the digital marketing coordinator for Photographers Edit. So she's joining us for the conversation today. But to that point, I'm curious. Let's just kind of dive right into the conversation. Rich and Heather, I know Heather is there with Rich as a second shooter on wedding days, but Rich, you kind of head up the engagement sessions prior to the wedding days. And I'm curious if there's something that you do before we even talk about the idea of posing. What do you do to help set the stage for couples, especially those who haven't been in front of the camera before, to help them feel more comfortable for the sake of the shoot?
That is a great question, Nathan. I have learned a lot. And so I'm basically I'm going to tell you what I've learned, and a lot of people can learn from my mistakes. All right. So from the very get-go, there's a disclaimer that this style of photography that I'm going to discuss today does not fit with everyone. It just does not fit for everyone. I learned this the hard way for a couple of times, and but if the couple is compatible with this style of shoot, you will get incredible images, and you'll have more fun. They'll have more fun. Everything is going to and you'll just be less bored, because again, if I'm a photographer, I'm shooting 30 engagement sessions per year, and I do the exact same thing for every single client. I'm going to get bored. I'm going to get burned out as a creative. And so this is kind of like, this is very interesting, because you can basically do the same thing, but get different reactions from your clients based upon their personalities. And that's what I love about it.
And just to get a little bit of clarification, Rich, when you talked about if this is the style that photographers are, I guess, implementing in their photography business, what is that style? Or maybe you're getting ready to expound on that.
Yes, I mean, like when a particular client actually even contacts me, I basically from the very get-go, from the very email, for the first email, I try to kind of like filter through clients who would be a good fit for the style of photography that I do. And so a lot of times I will tell them what I do, but sometimes, and a lot of times I will tell them what I don't do as well. Okay, my client.
I was just going to say that we've begun to learn through the years that it's very, very important for us to not only attract the clients who are the right clients for us, but to actually repel the clients who are not. And as we hone our brand, and as we hone who we are and why we do what we're doing, we simply don't want every single client to think that we're the right fit. And so we are actually looking for clients who want real, and they want moments captured, but they don't want perfection. So when they aren't looking for someone to make every single image completely posed, everything is, we're carrying around a bunch of external lighting, and heavy Photoshop and these kinds of things. It's a much more natural approach. Mm-hmm. And Rich's focus is trying to extract genuine, authentic connection between the couple and moments between them. Mm-hmm. And so,
yeah, I mean, but my clients basically, if you think about it, the more you do to create a perfect photo, like make sure the hair is perfect, the dress is perfect, the lighting is perfect, the more time you do try and create this one photo, the less authentic that photo will be. And so we're
not trying to downplay the importance that these photographers exist, and that there's a photographer for every client, and that these photographers can do wonderful work and provide exactly what certain people need. Yeah. It's just an understanding of who we are and what we do and what we don't do.
Exactly, what my style is, okay? Because I think those photos are incredibly beautiful and technically difficult to do. And so I have a lot of respect for the photographers who do that style. It's just not what my personality, doesn't fit with my personality and whatnot. So,
okay, so I guess very simply, just to sum it up, what you're going for is a very natural, authentic is a word that is thrown around a lot these days, and it can be kind of misunderstood because people overuse it. But what you're trying to capture is genuine emotion, a very intimate interaction between the couple that you're photographing. You do that by focusing on that very thing, the emotion, versus a highly produced session, if you will.
And I'm not even saying that when we're talking about these natural reactions or intimate moments, that this is some original thought and we're the only photographers doing this.
But we are.
We're just recognizing that this is what drives us, and this is what keeps us doing what we're doing. This is where the passion lies in our business. Yeah. I'm not saying it's original or totally revolutionary. I'm just saying we know who we are, and we know who we want to photograph, and that we want to attract clients who are looking for real moments as opposed to perfection.
And can we actually, is there a particular place on your website, Rich, that we could go just to share a little bit of what this looks like, just on the homepage even?
Well, we just posted, when you go to the homepage of our website, there's a link for our blog, or you could go directly. But we post
Then you go to, we are very careful about anything we post online that would fit into this style of photography. I really, because I don't want to have someone see my work and assume that I do a different style of photography. So everything we put online on Facebook, Instagram, it matches what we're talking about, because we definitely want to attract those types of clients.
Yeah.
So,
and we're actually, I have, I don't know if you guys can see this, but I actually have your website pulled up. I'm sharing my desktop currently. So we've got the initial gallery. There's a few images that we're scrolling through here. That kind of give a little bit of an indication of the type of imagery that you're capturing. It's very clean, relatively minimalistic, but what you do see is emotional engagement, emotional connection. Having shot weddings for over 10 years, and I think we were even discussing this just the other day, I've been in situations where a couple just is not comfortable expressing emotion in front of the camera. And man, it makes for a really awkward moment, or even a session for that matter. So I love that when you're talking about the idea of style, a lot of photographers, they talk about style. Really, all they're talking about is a Lightroom preset. Like, this is the finish of my images. The reality is that to be a really good photographer, the style starts with how you actually are photographing your subject. And so I'm glad that you're making that distinction. I'm going to scroll down here just a little bit as I'm talking, just so our listeners get a good feel for it. There's a really good emotional interaction between you and Heather. I like that picture on the nice to meet you section there. But I'm scrolling down just a little bit more, and let's see actually if we can pull up we've got some images here. So this is really fun, just fun emotional interaction between the couple. And there's one of the bride with her dad, of course, a little bit less a portrait, more of a candid moment.
Right.
But really all of these images have a theme, and that is real, raw emotion. And I love that. At the end of the day, I think that's probably going to resonate most. We can, this has been an interesting conversation with photographers over the last decade that Photographers Edit has been around. There's a lot of conversation around nuanced differences between in processing, where maybe a little magenta shows through a little bit, or the crop isn't quite right, or maybe there's a little bit too much noise, or a little bit, or maybe not quite enough noise. Some photographers like a little bit more texture to their images. All of these nuances that we tend to focus on as photographers probably matter much less to the end client. And what is going to matter to them certainly is the experience, certainly is the moment captured, but then to be able to actually go back to the emotion that can be seen in those individual images is so important. I've actually pulled up what looks like an engagement portrait right here. This couple, beautiful sunset, the flare, and she is just so into him. She's kind of grabbed the lapel of his sport jacket and pulled him in close, and they're about to kiss. I love that kind of raw emotion, and that's definitely something that I'd love to be able to provide to my clients as well. So I'm excited to be able to let our listeners kind of chime in and see, or listen in rather, and hear a little bit more about what you're doing, Rich. So we're gonna go to you here, I guess. By the way, Jamie chimes in and says hello. She was waving, so hi, Jamie. We're waving.
Hey, Jamie.
Back as well. What I'd like to do at this point, Rich, is just kind of go to the next question, which is, once you've set the stage for them, maybe you can comment a little bit more about how you do that too. And I love the fact that you spoke to the style, but speak a little bit about how you do set the stage. And then let's go to the tangible, kind of the step-by-step, what you do to get the client to relax for those various poses.
Yeah. So it begins after they hire me. I actually will send them a questionnaire about 2 weeks before their engagement session. And this questionnaire, I make both of them filled out. And I'll also tell them, do not share this questionnaire with each other. So basically, they're sending me all these answers to these questions, and the other one does not know what the other one is saying. So that is the questionnaire is a huge one. I'll share a couple questions that I basically ask, but before the engagement session, I will basically study this questionnaire. And because the questionnaire kind of goes further and deeper into the relationship and then I'll really use this questionnaire to actually figure out things to ask them and questions to ask them basically so that he can basically talk to her, or she can tell him about something. And I'm basically just photographing their reactions to this information that they're gathering. And
so these act as, you have them fill out this questionnaire, you get the finished questionnaire back, and then you go through and kind of memorize the answers from those questions.
Oh, I don't memorize. I literally create a shot list of things, because first of all, I know their personalities. Some of my clients' personalities are more playful. Some are more serious, more romantic, passionate, that kind of stuff. And some of my clients would consider themselves more energetic and adventurous and whatnot. And so basically, I try to tailor the prompts, the stuff that I tell them to, based upon their personalities. And from these questions, I literally just kind of like beforehand, just literally, like for example, let's see here. I basically ask, and I basically I tailor this based upon my brand as well, because my brand is more, I tend to lean more toward the lighthearted. I want joyful. I like laughter. That just kind of like speaks to me. My clients will basically, their romance kind of blossoms out of the laughter and having a great time with each other. So my clients will tend to be more on that side of the spectrum than really, really serious and quiet and posed.
But that happens as a result of you posting those style of images to your website. It draws that type of client in. I mean, Heather, to your point, you're saying that you're trying to draw these particular types of clients in. Is that how you're doing it then, through what you're displaying on your website?
Yeah, I think definitely everything that we put out there, both on the website and on social media, needs to be very strategic, and we try to be very good with that. And then also from the first phone call that Rich has with a client, they can tell how, if there's a connection there with his personality, via that phone call or that first meeting. And so it starts to become really clear very early on if a client is an ideal fit for us, based on the amount of connection between Rich and the client, the amount of energy. And that just becomes really apparent. So,
okay. Yeah. So once you have booked that client, it seems like a good fit. You book the client, you then send them, in preparation for this engagement session, you send them this questionnaire, and they fill that out. You get the information back. From that, you create a shot list, and they're almost like triggers to interesting conversation, or at least triggers for emotion, right? Based on their responses.
Yeah. Let me give you a couple examples just so people can understand. Okay. So basically, I'll ask, what is the coolest adventure y'all have ever been on? And so
in the questionnaire,
right? I'll ask them like, what is the quirkiest habit that your fiance has, but you actually really love? Those type of, when do you feel most loved by your fiance? And just kind of like those type of questions that kind of go a little bit further deeper into the nuances of the relationship that they will share with me. And I'll recount one of the moments that you are most proud of your fiance. And then really, I will just really take those prompts, and then I will talk to the guy, and be like, "You remember what you answered for this particular question?" And he'll be like, "Yeah, okay." I'm gonna come back here, and I just really want you to tell her that answer, And then he basically starts talking to her. I had this one guy. It was awesome. He said, I've never told my fiance this, but after our very first date, I was so in love with her that I went back to my dorm room and wrote a song for her.
Whoa.
And I was like,
that's awesome.
And so I was like, does she know about this? And he's like, no. I said, do you feel comfortable like telling her this?
Yeah.
I mean, like, and I said, and he said, sure. And so literally I literally was like photographing her reaction, getting this information from him that she had no idea. And just the love in her eyes and the light and joy that she showed in her face. You cannot tell people to pose that way. You can't do it.
That whole kind of stereotype of, all right, get over there and act like you like each other. That only goes so far in the end.
Yes.
But if you're able to pull from these talking points that you've captured from them through that questionnaire, and you're able to use those then as triggers to points of conversation for them while they're together where you've got them posed in this beautiful location, and then you say, hey, why don't you bring this up, or remind her of this thing, or remind him of this, or tell him how you feel about that. Right. In that case, did he actually start singing the song to her, or what happened?
No, I don't think he had memorized it, but he still had it though. But yeah, I mean, like a great, like I would just ask Clay, hey, if you could go back and relive one day with your fiance, what day really stands out to you, and why, you know? And then they basically just start, like, you remember that time we went to, you know, this place and we had this incredible day. I would love to relive that day over again. You know, that, and then they're like, oh my gosh, I remember. And then just all I'm just doing, just taking photos, you know, that's, and these amazing reactions are happening that in front of us.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Now, I feel like we kind of took a jump. We jumped ahead just a little bit far. Is there anything in particular that you're doing aside from that question? I know the questionnaire gives you information to work with for the actual shoot itself.
Yes.
But let's say, you know, you're going to meet your clients at 5:30 for this particular session. You show up, you've not really hung out with them before. Maybe you have a little bit. Regardless, they're not used to being photographed. Mm-hmm. You need to help make them comfortable before that camera is pointed in their direction. Yes. Is there anything in particular that you're doing there before then we actually get to the shoot? Talk to us about that.
Music.
What is that?
It's a speaker. It's music. So this is the speaker I use. It literally just clips on my belt loop right there, and so I have a Spotify or Amazon Prime music where, like, I will basically play really fun music if I want fun interaction. Music can do so much to people, so much. So if I can play really chill music if I want just a different interaction with them, you know. So I basically start off with, and I kind of warn them beforehand, not warn them, but obviously just kind of like, hey, you know, even in the questionnaire, I'll ask them what kind of music they like, and so I try to kind of, like, sometimes I'll just put on generic thing that I've come up with, but I'll just find a radio station based upon a particular, you know, artist
on
they
their
love,
preferences,
and then they're like, oh my gosh, everything, you know, and then immediately they start feeling more. They're like, hey, this is more of a enjoyable thing because they have something already that emotionally that they love, you know. So
I love that Rich encourages.
Heather, I'm sorry. Before you continue, for those of you who are listening on the podcast, you can't actually see what Rich just shared with us, but it is a very small circular. I don't know. Like, you could fit it in the palm of your hand. A little circular Bluetooth speaker with a clip, as he said, that he can clip onto his pants, and it's very easy then to be able to play that music and carry that with you, which is great too.
And it's incredibly powerful. I'm impressed by how like you would think something this small can produce much. It can do a lot. So
what's the brand?
It's JBL. You can buy it from Best Buy for $50. So
perfect. And Haylee will link that in the show notes, I'm sure.
Exactly. And Kathleen actually just chimed in and said, music adds so much to everything and relaxes you, and it's very, very true, especially if it's music that you're comfortable with or you're familiar with. I'm sure that adds an element of relaxation. I may have mentioned this story on the podcast before, but there was a time that I had the opportunity to photograph a maternity session. I had a client whose wedding I had photographed, and they wanted a maternity session, and not just a maternity session, but a nude maternity session. So we needed to create as uncomfortable an environment as possible. There were these very creative, artistic news, some ideas that she had gotten, I think maybe on Pinterest or something like that. And so we needed to create as comfortable an environment as possible. I did photograph at the client's home, and her husband was readily available to help as well. And we ended up capturing these beautiful shots, but we had music playing in the background. And in that particular instance, especially, even if, as well as I knew this client already, when somebody is beginning to undress for the camera, they may be a little bit uncomfortable. As a photographer, I'm just trying to create as comfortable a scenario as possible. Having music that is playing in the background that acts almost as filler in the moment is it kind of helps make everyone comfortable, especially if it's music that they know well. And then to add a little bit of humor, this is where it actually gets quite entertaining. But she wanted this particular shot that was basically almost like a cheesecloth or a canvas of sorts that was draped over her body and blowing back, kind of flowing back as a result of some type of wind. So there's a very artistic shot that she had in mind. We were literally photographing in her kitchen. So I had to set up a backdrop with a black background, and stood her in front of the background. We had this cloth draped over her body. Her husband then, with a gas leaf blower, was crouched underneath the island in the kitchen, pointing the gas leaf blower toward her, blowing this fabric back across her body. And we captured it. It turned out beautiful. And you'd never know that we were standing in her kitchen right next to we had this beautiful window light coming in from the glass door there that was in their kitchen. And you would never know that was the environment that we were, this loud gas leaf blower that's blowing air across. But we had music playing in the background, all that to say. We ended up it was an amazing, just gorgeous, gorgeous session. She was beautiful. And we created this really beautiful set of images for her. But all that to say, music helped create a more comfortable environment in that case. And especially with that type of shoot, to have that playing in the background made a big difference. Kathleen says that the music brings memories flooding back also, which is a great point. If you can get some music that is relevant, specific to their relationship, I'm sure that can make all the difference in the world. So anyway, I hate to interrupt there, Heather, but please, and Rich both, but you guys please continue.
I was just going to say that I love that Rich tells his couple when he's photographing an engagement session to view this like as a date and to relax and enjoy each other, and does everything he can to put them at ease instead of them feeling like they have to turn it on when the camera is pointed at them and then turn it off when he's not actively photographing them. But again, creating these moments where they can actually enjoy the experience and leave. And instead of being like, that was awkward, they're like, that was awesome. That was so much fun. Or that was really cool to connect with each other,
Well, the fact that you're asking questions, having them answer the questions separately, and then being able to experience the other person saying that thing to them or reminding them of that experience, and then have that coincide with the music playing in the background. That would be amazing. I want to be photographed now. Rich, will you photograph me?
That's the idea.
Yeah. We can do a nude wash session and cheesecloth and everything. We can. I have an electric,
I'll hold the leaf blower.
Oh man, get out of my head! Get out of my head! So yeah, it's great. I just love doing that for my clients. As far as like, it's just. What I do is what I try to basically tell my clients is that I'm going to do everything I can possibly do to make you forget that there's a camera pointed at you.
Yes.
And that's exactly, I am trying to make them play games. I'm trying to have them react to questions. Making them do everything that I can for them to be like, oh yeah, we're just out here having fun, connecting with the person that they're most close to in the whole world, and just that's what I love to do. So
and just for the sake of chronology, I want to make sure that for all those listening in or watching live, we're just taking them step by step through this process. So you booked a client, and you've been able to filter for that client based on the type of work that you've posted on your site. And for those of you listening again, I'll just reiterate richsmithphotography.com or .net, either way. You can check out Rich's work and get an idea of how he set his website up to filter for the clients that he wants to work with most. But you've done that. You've booked a client. You send them the questionnaire to fill out and to do so separately. So it's kind of a surprise for the other person.
Yep.
And then to set the environment or to help create a more comfortable environment, you then bring music along. You're playing music in the background to help them relax and maybe even connect more effectively because it's music that they're familiar with or has some relevance to their relationship. Now you're getting ready to start shooting. Kind of walk us through that process and what you're doing, not only to continue to help them feel comfortable, but then also to make the posing process as easy as possible.
Yeah. And this is where experience comes in. There's just no quick way to do this except just to shoot lots and lots of sessions. And so when I get there, I'm actually, when we first get started with the session, I basically read the couple. I can quickly realize like how comfortable the clients and how quickly the clients will get comfortable in front of my camera. All right. So in fact, I shot a client, some clients just the other day, and that from the very get-go, they were so laid back and they had such a great connection that I didn't have to do anything. I didn't do even prompts because they just loved being with each other, and there was no awkward hand posing or like that. It's like I don't know what to do my hands, do my feet. They were just chill, and it was awesome. I was like, whoa. But then on the other side of the spectrum, I do have some clients that need me to help them through the entire session, to do prompts, games, and whatnot. But I basically ask my clients, let me start off this way. And the more you get warmed up and you start understanding how I photograph and start enjoying the process, and you feel more comfortable with the process, feel free to do some spontaneous things because and take over for a little bit if you are comfortable with doing that. So some of my clients are kind of like in the middle right there, where they don't know what to expect. They've never been photographed like this before. All they know is, going to the prom is very, just very, very posed and whatnot. And so then I start, I'm asking them to make out a whole lot, and the guy's like, oh, I'm actually like this process, and then it becomes more, they become more and more comfortable, and then they become more, they start enjoying the process a whole lot more. So, but I basically start off with basically non-serious, fun things to do. And then once they become more and more comfortable, then I gradually move to the more serious, more intimate, more passionate type of because that kind of like requires more trust to
Sure.
basically to be more vulnerable in front of that. Mm-hmm. If I started with that, it would probably be awkward. But if we have established a relationship, or established a rapport, they're enjoying themselves, they like me, then I'll gradually get them to the more serious or prompts, romantic prompts.
So give us some tangible examples of the difference between a more relaxed photo versus a more serious photo, if you will.
Relaxed photo? I wouldn't say relaxed. I would be, it's more just fun photo.
And what does that actually mean? Like, give us an example of the style of pose or type of interaction that you're capturing in that sense.
Do you mean the prompts that he would give in order to get that reaction?
Well, you were just talking, Rich, about the fact that you start off with more relaxed interactions or more relaxed images before you move on to the more intimate, bit more serious photos. Yeah. And I'm just trying to give our listeners a kind of a tangible idea of what the relaxed versus the serious photos look like. What's the difference in posing?
It's more fun. Mm-hmm. It's more fun.
Okay, so what do you mean by fun? Yeah. Give us an example.
So I will have them play mostly by games. I will basically. I will basically create a shot list. I'll put that shot list in my watch. So I have my Apple Watch right here, and I'll basically warn them. I basically warn them. I basically warn them. I basically say I have a list here, and for the next hour or 2 hours, you get to do all the crazy things that I have listed here, and they get. But I basically make it a lot really fun. But a tangible example is basically just saying, we're going to play a game, and I want you guys to get really close to each other, and we're going to play same time. Okay, this is a game. This is a game called Same Time, and so basically the object of the game is for y'all both to think of a color, and then but don't. There's no hints involved. I want you guys to get really close. I'm going to count to. I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, and at the exact same time, I want y'all to yell out the color you're thinking of. And the object of the game is to figure out if y'all can come up with the same color. You'll have 3 tries to do this. And I am telling you, inevitably, I don't care who this couple is. If I play this game, they just yell out yellow, blue, and they will burst out laughing. I mean, it's like I'm not sure why. I don't know why this game is such a success.
It just works.
But it works so well. It's just like, and then, I'll say, I'm going to ask you guys a series of questions. This is called, I'll make maybe like a thing called word association, where basically I say, I'm going to ask you guys a series of questions, and the very first word, no matter if it makes sense or not, whatever pops in your head, the very first, you have to yell it out, I'll be like, if if Haylee was a movie, what movie would she be? Or if Todd was a jungle animal, what kind of jungle animal would he be? Or if so-and-so was a truck, or if if someone was a breakfast cereal, what kind of breakfast cereal would they be? And they just yell out the very first thing that comes to their mind, and just the reactions that normally comes from these prompts. It's just awesome, and so they're almost immediately they're like, okay, they're concentrating on the game, not concentrating on my camera, and so they're like immediately starting to laugh and have fun with the whole process, and that's exactly what I want them to do,
And so, and as you're saying these things from behind the camera while you've got the camera up to your eyes and you're shooting simultaneously.
Oh yeah. Or I'll come up to them and say, hey, this is what we're going to do next. And this is where you got to know your clients as well, because some of my clients, there's some prompts that I would not tell other clients,
For example.
So for example, I'll basically say, hey, I'll tell the guy, say, hey, what I want you to do is I want you to get really close to her or behind her and just whisper something in her ear that would make her blush. and so he's all on board that. And so he will like say something, all of a sudden she will just just amazing reactions,
light up. Yeah.
Or I'll tell him, just get closer to her ear and purr like a kitten, just like something unusual, something crazy, something that would make them be like, something to react to, And so there are just tons and tons of prompts out there that you can use that kind of like has those kind of reactions. Again, just for them to just loosen up and quit thinking about there's a camera pointed at them and just enjoy the whole process.
So if your actual engagement session, is that going to last? Because this is really what we're talking about here. Obviously, this is applicable to photographing couples on the wedding day as well. But how long does a typical engagement session last for you?
I had 2 engagement sessions. They can book me for a 1 hour or 2 hour engagement session. So so for 1 hour session, they can go one location, no outfit change. And if they book me for 2 hours, they get 2 locations and an outfit and 1 outfit change. And so it basically looks like it's 2 different sessions. And then
within that hour time frame or 2 hour time frame, what percentage of the time do you spend giving them these prompts to the point where they're comfortable, or do you maintain that approach the whole time? What does that look like?
Oh yeah. Again, I read them. If they start becoming more comfortable in front of the camera, they kind of understand. But a lot of times they want to. They just want, like I'm like, hey guys, walk toward me, and do y'all know how to play bumper cars? And they're like, yeah. And so then all of a sudden they have to have the music. Fun dance music. They're walking toward me, and they're like trying to bump each other away, and then like I'm just like, and just again, just even the body movements are just perfect for just amazing fun shots, And
do you have a list? Like, how many of these prompts do you have in your head? Because I love these ideas. In fact, Kathleen was just saying, great idea. Love the whispering in the ear. But I mean, even the bumper cars. Like, who would have thought that would be a thing? But like, how big is this list of prompts that you have in your mind?
The brain of Rich Smith. Tell us more.
Yeah. So again, that's why I put the list on my wife. So I don't have to really remember, because I have pre-formulated based upon their personality the list that I want them to go through. Most of these prompts are like they can be done with any client, and so. But it's like I have another prompt that'd be like, say, I'll have them just like look at each other and be like, all right, I'll just ask, which one? What was it? Who farted in front of each other the first time? And so then they'll start pointing fingers, and all of a sudden they start laughing. And you're like, oh my gosh, I can remember that. You remember that whole, but I can't say that to every client, because,
right.
But if their personalities fit that particular prompt, again, I get crazy, amazing reactions, And And so, so some of my clients are they would be more on the romantic side, but all my clients have a fun side. They all have fun with each other. So I mean, like, so some
it's just a matter of learning their personalities in order to be able to pull that out of them, I guess.
Yes, yeah, and I get most of that through a questionnaire that we send from the very get go. Basically, I ask them kind of some adjectives that would describe their relationship together. And so from the get-go, I'm kind of like gathering all this information, and I can kind of read people now based upon what they wrote on those 20 questions to me about kind of like how serious or how fun or the client is. And so I can read them pretty well as well. So
we all have those clients that are like, usually it's the guy, and they don't want to be there. They don't want to be taking pictures. Mm-hmm. Have you ever had it to where your games didn't work, or is it just like these always win?
That's a great question.
That's a great question. Mm-hmm. So that is something that I try to also filter as well, because sometimes the girl, when she sees my style, she loves it and she books me, but never in the process has she even shown her guy like any of my photos. And so he's kind of coming into it
depending on how engaged or disengaged he is with the wedding planning process. He may have never even seen the website. Yeah, and he's coming to the engagement session feeling forced to. He doesn't want to do it. He doesn't like being in front of the camera. I don't want to be here. And so I'm like, and so in some ways, I really try to like say, I need both of you guys on board for this style, because it won't work if one person is on board and the person thinks it's stupid. But for the most part, again, I'm in that situation. I may just kind of go back to a slightly more traditional way of just like having you got them posed, looking at each other, maybe looking away from each other, more artistic stuff. And then I'll be like, and they still turn out fine. But I'll just be like, okay, well, they're not my ideal client. And so sometimes that just happens, and I try my best to kind of like make sure that doesn't happen, but sometimes it does. So, yeah.
Well, so let's kind of take it a step further. We've set the stage. You're certainly creating a more comfortable, more fun environment for them to be photographed in. Let's delve specifically into posing, though, because it's one thing to get them to interact comfortably and to get that raw emotion. That's such a massive component of a great portrait, especially of a couple. Mm-hmm. But then actually posing them, that's a whole different conversation. And one of the things that I've seen happen, particularly at photography workshops over the years, as you got a model couple that's set up to be photographed, and you've got 10 photographers just pushing the shutter button, and literally there's no communication to that couple. And I have a bad feeling based on that tendency that a lot of this is going on, sadly, between a photographer and a client on a regular session. Mm-hmm. There's got to be some type of structure there, some type of instruction given, because most of these people haven't been photographed before in this type of scenario. Right. So what does that posing look like? And maybe kind of break down how you go about that process during the shoot. Yeah.
I mean, like, I am a photographer. Surprise. And so, but I know where the light is. And so normally, we are walking around, I'm joking with them. Even in between the shots, I'm basically talking with them and like, I'm trying to connect with them and making them, again, feel comfortable with my personality. And the whole time I'm looking around and trying to find different places to photograph. So yeah, I mean, like, I'm looking for that spot of light, or that really cool background, or a particular place I want to put them in. So I'll literally, for the most part, I basically tell my clients, don't bring any props. I don't bring purses. Don't bring anything that you need to put down in between the photo shoots, because between the different areas that we go to. So because they don't know when I may want to take a photo of them, because I mean, like, they may be walking with me, they may be walking in front of me. I don't want. I may be taking photos at any time during that session. Sometimes when they might not even know about it, and if they're carrying a blanket and they're carrying their their jerseys and they're carrying this or carrying that, then that basically it slows us down and it becomes more, I guess, posed or whatnot. So I basically leave all that stuff in your car. Let's just go out and have fun and enjoy each other. And basically, again, I just kind of reemphasize, hey, or if they really want, the blanket over them and whatnot, I'll get that out of the way really, really fast when we're close to the cars. And so they want photos of their dogs or whatever. That's completely fine. Bring your dogs. We'll do a couple of shots with them. And they're satisfied. They put the dog, somebody takes the dog, and then we go off and do kind of like what I want to do with them. So there is some compromises in there, which is completely fine with me. But for the most of the session, I want to photograph in the way that they hired me for my style, and so I want them to trust me that I can kind of capture them in the style that they've hired me for.
Yeah, it really takes the wind out of Rich's sails and thankfully this doesn't happen very often, but Pinterest can kind of be a photographer's worst enemy if a client is trying to duplicate someone else's engagement session rather than just being who they are. And I feel like I was guilty of this before we were even photographers, Nathan, because I feel like the first time you ever photographed Rich and I back in like 2006, I had seen a photo on your blog of a couple you had taken. It was beautiful. And I think I might have done a big no-no looking back and been like, hey, can you get this photo of us? She had her shoes off. They were in the foreground, because of the aperture, they were blurred out, but the couple was in focus or whatever.
I remember that shot.
And looking back now, I'm like, that's not something that naturally would have defined who we were, or it didn't end up being one of my favorite photos from the session because I was trying to create something I'd seen online. So our ideal clients are not coming to us with a list of Pinterest photos that they saw. They're basically trusting Rich to document who they are as a couple. And Rich says the biggest compliment for him is when the friends and the family of this couple come to him after a photo shoot or a wedding and say, oh my gosh, you totally captured Chris and Jennifer. Like who they are, like the spirit of their relationship, like I can see them in those photos. That's perfect. That's exactly who they are. That's when we've hit the nail on the head, So typically that doesn't come with a whole posing guide. It really, I feel like, is created through these prompts, through these natural interactions, through the laughter, through the quieter moments that he gets with these prompts. Does that make sense?
And it does make sense. I like the fact that you pointed out that you're setting down those props or encouraging them to set down whatever the so-called props would be so it doesn't interfere with this process. But let's get even more specific, more tangible. They've set down the props. You get them comfortable. You walk them to this location that you think is going to be perfect with this beautiful background. The light is gorgeous. And you're setting them up for a shot. What does the interaction look like specifically at that point where you're setting them up? How you're posing them together? How you're telling them to stand? How to pull her into him or whatever it might be? What does that conversation look like and how do you go about that process?
Basically just like that. For the most part, I basically say I'm not going to be super posy where like I want some of their personalities to kind of come out. I give them some hints as far as like what to do with your hands. If you can put your hands on her, put your hands on her, or I may tell them what to do with their feet. But for the most part, the only thing I basically tell my clients to do that does not feel natural is to get their heads close together. The closer their heads are together, it makes great photos. If body language, if he's holding her really close by the waist and she's trying to see him, she will naturally kind of do this with her body, kind of like she's trying to like back up and see and focus on his face. But on my photo, it looks like she's trying to get away from him. You know what I'm saying? Her body language looks like, and so basically say, don't just get in really close or whatnot. And so basically I'll say, and get your heads really close. I'm about to say this, boom, and then I'll let I'll be like, hey, you guys get in really close. I want you to close your eyes, relax. All right, now I want you to make. Without opening your eyes, I want you to make the silliest face you can possibly make. And on the count of 3, I want you to open up your eyes and see each other. and then they'll like, oh, and so that I'm not photographing their silly faces. I'm photographing their reactions when they see each other with the silly faces, because the silly faces immediately go away and they start laughing at each other and enjoying that. So a lot of times I'm just, just.
And depending on how much help a couple needs, how natural they look in front of the camera, because there's a whole continuum of, very natural body language in front of the camera, all the way to very awkward body language in front of the camera. So Rich will literally go up and touch the clients and put their arms in different places. Like I have lots of photos of you literally like touching the clients, like, not every client and not all the time, but if he's trying to get a particular pose.
But for the most part, with these things, I mean, like they will naturally kind of do what they want to do in the first place. Simply because I'm basically having them react. They feel more relaxed in front of the camera. So they're not, the only time that they do something awkward with their hands is when they're thinking about their hands, or when they're doing something awkward with their legs, is because they're thinking about their legs. But if I'm having all these interactions with them, then their body just naturally goes into a more natural pose, because they're not thinking about their legs. They're thinking about the game I'm making them do, or the question they're making them to react to. And then they're just reacting.
What are you thinking, Nathan?
Well, I was just going to say, speaking of silliness in games, I hear your kids in the background playing quite actively. That's it sounds like they're having a lot of fun, and you encourage that environment any and everywhere, Rich and Heather. So
that's they
fun 100% of the time.
They may be giving each other prompts right now.
But I do want to ask, and we just have a few minutes left here, but I do want to ask, you're talking about the idea of their hands kind of naturally falling, or their bodies kind of falling where they're comfortable based on the prompts that you're giving them for the sake of interaction.
Yeah.
But is that, I guess, without giving them more specific instruction, will their body position end up looking awkward?
Yeah. So at the very beginning, it does. At the end of the session, it doesn't. So, and I'll basically get them hints too. I'll be like, okay, this is how you hug your brother down here, but the farther your hands go, exactly. But the farther exactly. So if I'm
please demonstrate for those of you listening on the podcast right now. Rich is pulling Heather in close to him.
Yeah. So my hands are basically about the waist, and that's basically how you hug someone. The further your hands are up, especially your hands, there's not too many people you allow to touch your face, and so I want to non-verbally say this couple has a more intimate relationship with each other than just brother and sister. So if I'm having him like touch her face, get in close and like or even play. I can even have him play like nose wars or Eskimo kisses or what like
nose wars
or I basically will get in and be like, I'll like tell him to like whisper something sweet in her ear. A lot of times I'll try to pull her aside without him knowing and be like, I'm going to have you guys say something sweet into each other's ear. I'm going to have him say something sweet in his ear, but when it's your turn, make a farting noise in his ear, and it is hilarious. And so, or I'll basically say, I want you to draw something on her nose. I'm sorry,
on her cheek.
I want you to draw something on her cheek with your nose, and then she has to figure out what you're drawing. And so literally, he's like doing this. I'm just really taking photos, and with still photos, the entire thing looks really great because he's like just getting in there, like, give me your cheek, and he's like drawing this, and then for those of you listening in on the podcast, Rich has pulled Heather in close to her, had kind of adjusted her face a little bit with his hand, and is literally drawing things on her cheek with his nose. It's pretty brilliant.
Yeah. I feel sad for anybody who's not watching live.
So
Rich, I do have to ask you one quick question here, though. The idea of, for example, heads close together. I think I've heard clients even comment about this directly to me before, but some of these types of interactions, it's simply not the type of interactions that they would exhibit even privately in their own life. It's just not, quote, natural. What would your answer be to a client that says that, or even a photographer who would argue that you're creating these scenarios that aren't very natural anyway?
Yeah. So though, I don't know. I mean, like, I've never had any anybody say that to me as far as like that.
Okay.
They love the photos because they're just enjoying each other. So I mean,
I think those are some of the most beautiful, intimate moments.
Because,
for sure.
Because I mean, like, some of my clients are like, I can't photograph them on the couch watching Netflix. But I mean, like, because that's what they do 90% of the time, you know? So I mean, like, but at the same time.
And probably a lot of it has to do too with the fact that you are, from the get-go, you're drawing in the clients who this would be more natural to. I mean, when they're seeing those pictures on their site, on your site, they're like, that's the kind of picture that I want. Even if it's not necessarily something I do all the time, that's how I want my relationship to be pictured or represented. And so they're okay with the idea that you're setting these shots up.
Yeah, well, based on the photos that we try to represent on the website, I absolutely love, and ShootQ stores this information, but we have all the what the client says in the contact form that they send us from our website to basically say they're interested in hiring us. Our very first contact, our very first communication with this client, and a lot of the time it's like, I absolutely love your work. It spoke to me. I laughed. I cried looking at the photos. I need to meet. You know what I mean? Like, they're sold on who Rich is before we even meet. So because of what we're putting out there. And so again, this just keeps going back to the strategy of what we put out there and being really, having it just be heavily curated based on what it is that we want to photograph and the type of clients that we want to attract and repel. So
if I can figure out that they don't want to really be close to each other, I mean, I could literally have them, standing, like, even just like holding hands or holding even pinkies together. And then I'll be like, say, hey, who is the least musically inclined of you two? And either the guy or girl be like, is me. And they'll be like, okay, you have to hum a song, and then your job is to figure out what he's humming or whatnot. And so you can do that anywhere. You don't have to be close. You can even be back to back or anywhere, and you could be just humming. But because he's humming, he's not. You can take lots of great photos of somebody humming because they're not singing or moving their mouth at all. And so and it's again another game and then he's like, and then she kind of guesses and sometimes it's wrong and they just laugh about it.
And they're laughing. That's good. I think there's an opportunity here, Rich, for you to create like a downloadable PDF for photographers. Cause these prompts are awesome. And as long as I've been in the industry, I haven't heard all of these before. So it's
amazing.
Really good stuff. We have just a couple of minutes left before our live session is over, but Rich, I know you shared a couple of resources with us ahead of time, and I'm wondering if maybe you can comment on those just briefly here before we close. And of course, we'll link to these in the show notes at bokehpodcast.com. For those of you listening in or watching live, rather, this is also going to be pushed out to the Bokeh Podcast later today. And you can go listen to the Bokeh Podcast by just going to bokehpodcast.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at Bokeh Podcast as well. But Rich, will you share some of those resources with our listeners?
Yes. Obviously, photographers can get a lot of prompts out there, and including prompts for family sessions as well. There's some great prompts for family sessions or even solo sessions, like a senior session. There are just prompts for basically everything. So prompts to help your wedding party to interact better as well. There's prompts for everything. So one resource is momentdesign.co. momentdesign.co, not .com. This is a website that you can purchase a lot of these kind of prompts. And what the cool thing is that they'll also they will actually give you basically how to use it. They'll give you some really great interactions, and they'll give you a lot of questions to send your client beforehand. And I actually a lot of the questions that they have actually used myself, but the photographer who put this out is a little more. There's a little more serious, and so I basically changed a lot of those questions to match more of my personality. That I want more fun questions for them to answer. Okay, so momentdesign.co is a great source. There's a photography Facebook group called, how do you pronounce this?
Promptography. So
hopefully that'll pop on the screen there. It's a closed Facebook group, but if you're a photographer, just ask to join. And they will Facebook.com, I guess, promptography, and they'll let you in. And this
sounding like a medical procedure there.
Exactly. Proctology. Yes. And so if you go on there, they'll let you in. And this is just a whole group. It's a free group to get in. And they are all about like, hey, how do I do this? Or you can search. You can just start scrolling, and you'll get tons of great things. A lot of bad ones, but a lot of good ones too. But the only way to know is just to find it, test it out on your clients, and be like, I got some great reactions. I'm going to save that one, or that was a dud. I'm going to throw that one away. And another one is a paid resource called Unposed Field Guide, and so. It costs about $100 to get this. Actually, I think it's on sale right now. It used to be $150, and so this is a good deal. But you can get into a private Facebook group that they only allow unposed field guide people to get into. And again, it's just a huge resource. And it's probably a little bit higher quality as far as like the resources are concerned and the prompts are concerned. And so, but there you go. That would give you a really good head start on how to photograph people in this style.
Well, this has been really, really good. And I think one of the more practical episodes that we've hosted. So Rich, I have to thank you and Heather both for contributing your vast wisdom and knowledge on this topic. For those of you watching on Facebook Live, again, you'll be able to go back and watch this video again. You can also go to bokehpodcast.com, BOKEH podcast.com, and you'll be able to listen to the episode on the go, and pretty much any podcast player that you can imagine. Later on today, we'll have that posted. We'll also link to the resources that we mentioned, including these here at the end in the show notes, so you can go reference those. Again, that'll be up later today, probably between 5 and 6 Eastern. You'll be able to find those. But and Leanne actually commented. She says, "I'll have to catch the replay. I think I missed most of it." So yeah, definitely do, Leanne. And for any of those that have kind of signed in late or listening in late, you can always go back. You can watch the video, listen to the podcast episode. And earlier, Sarah said, this is helpful, Rich Smith. So, Rich, I think you've definitely contributed added value to our listeners today. And I really appreciate you sharing. Again, for those of you who are listening to the podcast, you can check us out Workflow Wednesdays live, usually at 1:30 every week. We'll vary from time to time, and we'll let you know ahead of time if the time changes. But just go to facebook.com/photogsedit. And then for those of you watching live, you can go to bokehpodcast.com, listen to the podcast. Thank you, Haylee. Thank you, Rich and Heather, for contributing to our Workflow Wednesday today.
Of course.
You bet.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, have a wonderful day.
Yeah, see you guys.
Thank you so much for listening to the Bokeh Podcast. Will you let us know what you thought by leaving a review of the podcast in iTunes or the Apple Podcast app? And I'd love to hear from you personally with your thoughts about the podcast and maybe suggestions about future topics and guests for the show. My email is nathan@photographersedit.com. The Bokeh Podcast is brought to you by Photographers Edit, custom image editing for the wedding and portrait photographer. Visit photographersedit.com.